I always like to ask who is from environment, but I realize that being on camera, I don't know who's from environment. So everything I talk about is my personal views. I'm not attaching it to what we do in environment, it's just what I do. And one of the things I was thinking about as we were going through the talks just in the last 25 minutes is, how did I get dragged into doing this? Not actually talking today, but how did I get dragged into actually using Turnitin? And it's because I'm naive, I'm young, I'm energetic, I tend to say yes to everything. And Scott, who's our CTE liaison in environment, said, Sarah, I think you should do this. And I said, okay, yeah. I didn't realize it would actually become a very taxing, both emotionally, requiring a lot of detail, but it does. But the clause is you can go through academic integrity issues with your students where you're not involved and where your associate dean deals with it at all, and you don't have to talk to your student about it whatsoever. That's not the approach I take. So, of course, those people who want to take that approach, who are the ones who don't actually want to put up their hand and talk about it today, because, trust me, academic integrity makes you as uncomfortable as it does the student, and that's why probably most faculty don't want to deal with it, you can email me privately and we can talk about it then. I'm going to try to go through what I experienced. I've now been teaching for almost 4 years, and I use it in every single course. So I have not given up on the belief that the process works. I also have realized that my students, because I've seen them from first to fourth year, have figured it out too. And I now have TAs who have specifically said to me, I want to work with Sarah because she does this. It's still as taxing today as it was then, and I still learn as much today as I did then too. So, what is Turnitin? It is an electronic system that detects, comparing to electronic material that's out there on the internet, material that has potentially been copied. So I want to ask you a question. If I said to you, you're going to submit a paper, and that paper is going to go into an electronic system that's going to be double-checked to everything out there, what do you think it doesn't count? How do you think where do you think the loophole is? Because they're thinking this. Students hear about this, and they're only thinking about the loopholes. What does it not count? Oh, right. First thing is they think, oh, well, I have friends. I have their papers. It's not going to count those. Well, I elect in my courses to say it does count those, and I have in my own repository. And there are choices that you can make to say, no, I don't want this going into a repository, and that's okay. But that is true. They believe that their friends' papers will not be included. There's a second thing that's very common. When a person is looking on the internet, not at the original source, they think that won't be caught because it's not the original author. Turnitin compares it to anything. Not the author who originally wrote it, but what the most recent hit has been on it. So very different there. The other thing people say to me, well, I got a book from the 1920s. It's not electronically available. This journal is not electronically available. That doesn't matter. Because no matter who decided to write about it, it's now there in the electronic system. So, is it perfect? Does it catch everything out there? No. Does it catch a lot of it? Oh, yeah. And when today's student is relying probably 99% on what they can get on Google Scholar, it's in there. TAs, resistant at the beginning, but this is a fantastic function. You have the ability to grade online. This is a system that allows you to have your rubrics there, a drag and drop system. So a TA who's used to doing hard copies, writing a lot of comments, they can't do that anymore. They have to use a form system that I provided them, which there's a bit of resistance for at the beginning, but they quickly realize they just go click, grammar problem, click, inappropriate, click, awkward, click, period, click, period, click, period. And next thing you know, a student's getting a paper back with so much feedback that they are shocked, that they realize that nobody else does this in their courses. However, that doesn't mean that it replaces the personal individual reading a paper and giving compliments. So I got to say, although TAs are resistant at first, as soon as I decided to bring in a TA that it was working for them, and that TA could give the experience they had to other TAs, they're all on board. So really great. The last thing is the Peermark. Peermark is where students can anonymously view each other's work and assess it. But unfortunately, this is not available in D2L. But I decided to put this up at the last minute because if you recall from today's presentation about how we should be incorporating teaching and research together, the idea of peer review is a research-based process. And so this is something that Sean and I are going to talk about later, maybe. So when I first started using Turnitin, I didn't actually talk to my students about it. I'm going to go back and rephrase that later. With time, I decided I was going to start telling them what I was looking for and what the TAs were looking for. And I generally say there are two infractions, common. One is somebody copies material, word for word, and they fail to cite it. If you read it, you would think they wrote it if it was good English and you believed that they had good English. This is a huge no-no. This is what I consider the largest infraction. The second one is a student copies word for word, but they have the citation. They found the research. They knew it was important. They knew it was relevant. They put it in there and they put a citation. They thought it was great. They did not identify any problems. And there are cultures out there who this is the correct way of doing it. So what happens now? I say to students, you have to look at what I am looking for and what my TAs are looking for. And the first thing that we want to know is how similar is your paper to others? How similar is your paper to the electronic material that's out there? Is it foolproof? No. No. There are common phrases. There are such things as, what if the bibliography gets counted? So students are panicked. So we want to look at how similar it is. It tells me sometimes how much do you originally write. You get a paper, and the whole thing is highlighted. And you say to the student, wow, man, you do research well. You found lots of dynamic sources. But did you write a single word? And how should I evaluate you on your writing quality? Because unfortunately, the question is not what do you find in research, it's what do you write and synthesize. The second thing is do they understand the material? If someone can write it in their own words, and part of our rubric is the explanation and elaboration, and the significance, the outcome, where is it leading to, that's not there because it's missing. We want to know if high quality citations tells us very quickly if it's just lifted off any source from the internet, because the system will tell you many sources. Is it foolproof? No, it's okay. And lastly, about the correct formatting. So this is what it looks like. You get a report from a student, you upload it, they upload it, it generates a report, it spits this out. Top right-hand corner says 48% of it has a similarity index. 48% of that paper is similar to electronic material available out there. It shows me what the sources are. Internet sources, publications, other papers by students. It then shows me an individual breakdown of every item numbered corresponding to the material in the document. So you're looking at this and you tell me what you see. What would you look at and what would you think of the student who submitted this paper? I'm just going to pick on people. Christoph, you're evaluating this. What do you say? What do you think? What comes to mind?
It depends a bit on, were there questions that you provided and they might have repeated? Or was the assignment maybe consisting of 3 or 4 questions? They just wrote the questions down and started writing their own thing.
Okay, yeah, you have to ask yourself, are there going to be common phrases, such as the exam question or the assignment question, will it be repeated? Anybody see any other trends when they look at this? Yeah, Sean? Yeah, this person has a friend, at least one friend. This person has 29% of their paper similar to that of another student. And the wonderful thing is you can click on that, and we'll tell you how many other students have that exact same paper, what term they came in, and if I can actually look at the material and cross-reference it, or whether I have to request that information from another person. A number of 48% similarity to me is a massive red flag. Students should be looking at under 10%. Anything over 20%, my TAs and my students know that I double check. 48% says 48% of that paper they did not write. Somebody else did. And that could just be, are you copying the questions or are you interpreting the questions? So this is an example. An actual paper. You'll notice that there's a number 5 at the top right-hand corner. Sentence is fully highlighted. There's a number 4 where the reference is. Remainder of the paragraph not highlighted. What does this show you? Bob.
It shows you that that first sentence was lifted.
Yes.
Entirely.
In entirety, word for word, verbatim. And then it shows a reference. But that reference doesn't match the sentence. This is interpretation. This is where the TA has to go, you know what? You're not going to see the author who wrote that original sentence because this is from any electronic source, not the original source. So sometimes a little confusing. What about this one here? This is a paragraph. What do you see? Student wrote the word invasive alien species, and research indicates and performed. The rest is highlighted. The whole paragraph is lifted. It shows it came from source number 2 on 2 occasions and source number 10. I have a rule. In a 5-page paper, where the 5th page is all citations and you have 4 pages of content, you can make the mistake between 5 to 7 times. Once you're at that level, there's not enough for a TA to grade you on your writing quality. Here's another one. This is a good example of a student who has one friend. It's all from one source, and that one source is another student at the university. When you are using D2L and you are using Turnitin, it is super simple. You click on the little thing that says Enable Turnitin Plagiarism Software. You then go to what's called the Advanced Settings. You then make a few selections here. I'm going to kind of brief over this because if you're interested in it, then I think it's worth looking at more detailed. You want to ask yourself, is it going into a database? If a student's going to be submitting something more than once, do you want it to compare it to the original one? No, you don't want that in the database. So there's going to be some questions. Why do you use it? It really, truly gives you an indication of the student's writing ability at a first-year level, perhaps. It shows you the blatant plagiarism. Can you get around it? Yes. You change every 3rd word. You have the ability to make a setting that says how many words in a row will you consider copied. And for me, it's 4 words. You can make it 10. You can make it 2. I use 4 words because I was told to. It does let you see trends. It shows you what the whole cohort is doing, but it also shows you what that one student does multiple times through the semester. So you can go back and look at those trends. It gives you a very quick way to have paperless grading. I have to say, I love it when a TA grades a paper, and then 2 papers down the road, I have to go back and look at the original paper. I can pull it all up. It's all there at my fingertips. Even when I go back the previous semester, it's still all there. Electronic is really nice. To use the system, you must request it from IST. In that, they will always ask you to validate and make sure that you've included it in your course outline. You must make sure that you include all of the mandatory material from the university on using it. And then you have to provide the option for the student to opt out, not to use it. And the reason for that is it's a US military database, and if your name is Mohammed, and you're from chemical engineering, and you work on explosive devices, you might not want your name in there. There's also other reasons for individual intellectual property, and that you don't want somebody else making money off of your papers. I don't ask them why they don't want to do it. I've in fact only had one person say they don't. And when a student says they don't want to use it, in the course outline, there's an alternative. It's an annotated bibliography. They also do an intro interview with me where I just ask them about what they wrote about. Oh, you really need to educate your TAs. I always have Sean. Oh, I think you've done it every semester for me almost. Almost. I have my TAs go to training to make sure they understand how to use it, how to interpret it. I always make sure that TAs understand that I'm the one that's imposing the penalties, not themselves. I've realized that some TAs do not want to deal with it as much as others, so you have to always be on the watch out for that. training is important. I'm not going to go through these slides, but U of W has a lot of support materials, including these automatic slides that you can incorporate into your courses. They even have a 7-point slide PowerPoint presentation. And it's teaching students about what academic integrity is, what cheating is, and then you get to tell you how it is incorporated into your course. You need to make sure if you're going to deal with academic integrity and turn it in that you're really aware of what it means for the student, what it means for yourself, and what the ramifications are. I couldn't have gone through this process without having the Associate Dean, Jeff Casello, in Environment, and having Carol Knipe, the administrator, really work with me. It's important that you know what the penalties are. As an individual instructor, it is up to you. If you choose to go through with it, though, with the Associate Dean level, you have 3 days to report it. That's rapid turnover. You have to have the student sign off on it, and the penalty goes from your hands to including that of the Associate Deans, which could be a maximum of 5% off the total course mark. You don't have to deal with the student. I choose to. And I have to say to you, I learn a lot from that process. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Associate Dean can require them to do supplementary courses. And of course, if they do it more than once, there's a larger offense. So 2 main courses I use it in is ENVS 195, Introduction to Environmental Resource Studies. It's 3 papers. 2 small papers as individuals. They submit it. They don't get to see their Turnitin score until it's graded. The 3rd one they do as a group. And in that case, I've learned to realize that they have to have the opportunity as a group to have a revision period. And the reason for that is if one person plagiarizes, the whole group goes down together. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure. But that's the way in which it's handled in my department. So I realized when that happened on one occasion that we needed to give the opportunity for them to revise and identify if there was an individual who was having challenges writing. I use it in ENVS 131, which is a Communication for Professional course. This one here, they have a 4-stage paper they write. An outline, anti-bibliography, a draft, a final reversion. This one here is amazing for Turnitin. But I don't let them actually use Turnitin to revise into the last stage. Because, as my 21-year-old nephew said to me, yes, Sarah, we use Turnitin at Brock, and we use it automatically at the beginning because we get a report back, we look for the problems it caught, and then we fix every 3rd word so that when we submit it a 2nd time for grading, it's no longer detected. And the more I use it, the more the students learn how to get around it. I teach this component that has these hot topics where students are using material off the internet from like short-term material, last couple months maybe. Those ones are becoming increasingly challenging, really picking up a lot of detection of plagiarism because they're finding it hard to put short, immediate information in their own words. So that's something I'm going to be kind of trying to revise. I want to talk to you now, and I feel like I'm zooming because we're way over. I want to tell you about some of the lessons I've learned. I was scared to impose penalties at the beginning, and I was scared to deal with the Associate Dean because I was going to be screwing up a student's life, and I would let it go. The thing I've learned is now in all my courses, my first assignment is worth very little, and I hit everybody 100% hard. Because it provides for an opportunity for them to change and correct themselves. It's worth very little so we can recover their grades. I found that when I left it to the very end to deal with, there were actually warning signs and flags from that student from the very first assignment that I had missed. So I became very accustomed to that's it. At the very beginning, I hit you hard, there's no tolerance, the students know that, there's no exceptions, and the rest of the course goes super smooth. What's also happening is that students very quickly realize that I do want them to improve their writing, and they start coming for help, and it develops a whole different relationship. I've decided that there are 3 types of students. The student who comes in who goes, you know what, I ran out of time, I'm really sorry I cheated. And I'm like, okay, you're in trouble, but okay. The second one is, oh my God, nobody ever told me how to write. I didn't realize I wasn't writing it in my own words. They're genuinely upset. They show me their notes. I'm like, wait, got to put the quotes on and like really crazy stuff where I'm like, they care. Those students recover quickly. And then there's the ones that are super angry. They can't believe you caught them, and they can't believe you're going to do something about it, and they are angry. And those students tend to haunt me later because they want to withdraw, so they get it off their record, and it just repeats and repeats and repeats with them. So very quickly, this is why I realized I actually like doing interviews with my students to find out why they're in the situation they are, because for a third of them, I can actually help them learn to write better. A third of them, I realize they're a pain in the butt, and I don't really want to deal with them again, and they just go upstairs to the dean's office. And then another third are actually genuinely wanting to recover, and I see the recovery. Make sure you know when you have a student that you're about to deal with academic integrity, you know what faculty they're from. I have students from other faculties, and I didn't realize until it was too late, and I was regretful of some actions I had made, that they were in different faculties, and the rules are different. So make sure you know that before you go up to the dean's office and start reporting it. That doesn't mean you can't get information. You can do that at any time, but I've learned a few times that I made that mistake. I have higher plagiarism in the winter semester than the fall. I figure it's because in the fall, the students are really scared. Their first time at university, and in the fall, they don't know anybody, but by winter, they know people, and they're copying. People that are of different ethnic groups and different understanding on how to write, because there is some differences among cultures, and we've had some preferential treatment for them. I've had courses where 40% plagiarized. 120 students, and I had to bring in the director of the course to say, I want to show you this. And he did not believe me till he saw it. And it was because the students were wanting to use it as a system to say, oh, now I've flagged the system on how it works, I'll just correct it now. Like, it was really strange. And that's the moment I decided to actually educate the students how it worked. When my cohort of students had never used Turnitin, they really thought they could pull it over my eyes. And now I show them how it works, and I don't have rates that high. When you're using Turnitin, make sure that you build in appropriate buffers, because we often have the system go down or glitches making reports. If you don't have the buffer in there and you've got another graded assignment coming up, you can be in lots of trouble. And last thing, but not least, is remember that all your conversations are confidential, whether they involve your TAs or not, whether they involve the associate dean. Keep meticulous records, because they come back on you. Okay, and I think that was it. So I'm sorry, but thank you.